welcome back to episode 3 of Racer X Garage. On the last episode, we pulled the transmission out of my Nova. And on this episode, we're going to go over adjusting the shifter and putting a new clutch in and putting the trans back in the car. We're actually going to do a little test driving as well. I do want to be honest. I said on the last episode that we were going to be able to take the car to the track and see if it improved any, but not going to be able to do that yet because I have to put 300 to 400 street driving miles on the clutch before you can go take it and drag race it. You got to get the clutch surface worn in very evenly and nice before you go beat on it at the track. So I'm going to drive the car when I get home after work and on the weekends and get that thing ready as soon as possible. Hopefully within 2 weeks, maybe not this weekend, but next, we'll go ahead and take it to the track. But you have my word, the next episode will include a couple of runs with the Nova at the track. So with that said, let's go ahead and get to working on the transmission. So let's pause for a second here. I'm not going to go into full detail on how I adjusted the shifter in this episode. I did, however, record the whole process, and I'm going to upload it as a separate video that somebody can use as a reference if they're adjusting a shifter and they need to know more detail about it. So I'm going to put a new playlist up on our Racer X Garage homepage that goes into depth on that whole entire process. But for someone that's just kind of watching this video for some entertainment, it's just too long and too boring for that. So you're just going to get a quick synopsis of what's going on this video. So let's get back to it. Well, I got the transmission out, and here she is. This is my Muncie M20 4-speed transmission. I had to pull out for a couple things. The first thing was I did not know how many splines were on this transmission because this is not the original transmission in the car. But it has 10 splines, and I needed to know that so I could order the correct clutch for it. So I'm going to get a clutch on the way. The second reason I pulled it out is because when I bought the car, it had a different shifter on it. It had a drag racing specific shifter called a Hurst Super Shifter. And the problem with that is the Hurst Super Shifter mounts about 4 inches higher than it is right now. So this bolt would be about right here. The problem with that is my Nova has a factory 4-speed tunnel, and in order to get that shifter to work, they had to kind of cut the tunnel up and bend it back. So it looked terrible in the car. It was dangerous. It could cut you. So I ordered the correct shifter for it, but I ordered the incorrect install kit. So because I ordered the incorrect install kit, what I found out is these levers that are on the transmission itself that move with the shifter, they come in different ways to mount them. They either have a bolt, like you see here, that goes into the casing, or they have a stud that has a nut that holds it on. The problem with that is this area has this opening right here. This opening is different sizes based on how it bolts to the transmission. So what I had to do was reuse the Hurst Super Shifter levers with this transmission to get it to work for now. So I was able to find the correct shifter arms on eBay actually that are meant for the bolt-in style. So I'm going to swap those out. I want you guys to notice the difference in the lengths of these levers. They are at least ½ an inch shorter than the Hurst Super Shifter levers. Because of the length of the shifter levers, my first and second and my third and fourth shifts are very long throws. That is because the pivot point here is so much higher and takes so much more distance to move. And I'll kind of explain that, and we're going to look at it after I replace the levers. I'm going to put it in first gear. I'm going to try to do my best to hold the shifter while I put it into second gear. This is going to be tough. Alright, I'm going to measure this real quick. Okay guys, I went ahead and measured the throw of the transmission from the front of the knob to the rear of the knob from first gear to second gear. And if you look right there, we're looking at about 9.5 inches. So let me throw the levers on, and then we're gonna measure again. Okay, so while I replace these levers, that means I'm gonna have to readjust my whole shifter setup. So these levers have an adjustment point down here, and they mount directly to the arm here. And the way they mount is just by using this clip. So there's a clip that holds it on, and then there's a bushing that also holds it on the one side. So that bushing makes sure it aligns well in the hole itself, so there's no movement. So we're gonna pull those clips out, make sure we don't lose our bushings. And then what's important to know is which direction things are facing for one, so I don't wanna make sure the ends are facing the wrong way. And then we also wanna make sure that our arms are facing up. If they're facing down, your shifter pattern is gonna be backwards. I found that out the hard way. So I'm gonna pull these off real quick. And they come off really easy. I'll put that on so I don't lose it. And then we'll pull the front one off and do the same thing. And put my bolt back in it. The reverse one actually does point down. So make sure you take reference of that if you're changing out your shifter. Let me get these tight. So when you buy a brand new shifter, it actually comes with a nylon tool that looks exactly like an Allen wrench, except it's white and nylon. If you look in the shifter, there's a notch right down here. That notch is important because what happens is you take your tool, or this happens to be an Allen wrench, and you adjust those shift levers until they all line up and fit in well, which is hard to do with one hand, but I'm gonna make it happen. Now I've got two of them. Now I need the reversed in, and you can see that now all three levers are locked in because of that Allen wrench is sitting there in place. And there's actually another small tab back up in there, you can see it, that will definitely lock them all in place so there's no more movement. Once we got that Allen wrench to make sure the shifter doesn't move anymore, we got to make sure our shifter levers are in neutral. So this is the third, fourth shifter lever. I just pushed it forward and it's locked in one of the gears. So I'm going to pull it back one, and it's in neutral. And we can check that by going back one. So it's in between the two gears. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to adjust these rods, and we're actually just going to spin them either in or out until it lines up with that hole very easily. So again, I'm just going to spin it again. We're still not there. Maybe one, maybe two more times. We're getting closer, but you see we're still kind of scraping the edge there. So I'm going to go another time and check. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go one more time and see where we're at. I think that's very centered there, so I'm going to go with that for this one. Bushing on the arm into the hole, flat side against, straight edge into the hole on the arm, and down in. Let me get you guys a real close up of that, so you can kind of see, get the idea behind it. Okay, so now I've got everything bolted up and on. I got all the clips in, I've got the bushings and everything. So I'm going to pull the Allen wrench out now. It should come out fairly easily, or your nylon tool that Hurst gives you. And I'm just going to kind of run through the gears. It's kind of hard to do one person, but I got to hold the trans. That's first gear, Second gear, I'm feeling really good engagement in the gears with feedback on the lever. Third gear and fourth gear. Everything looks good, so I'm confident with this. So let's get a measurement on how long that throw is now. So I'm gonna put it in first gear and see what we got. Okay, so here's the results. The straight lines here are from when I measured the Super Shifter levers. The cross hash line are from the Competition Plus levers, which are the correct levers. The Super Shifter lever, if you remember, measured out to 9 1/2 inches. This lever, the correct levers for the Competition Plus shifters, actually measures out to about 8 1/8 inches. So there's about almost 1.5 inches. It's 1 3/8 inches difference between the two. So that's a pretty significant difference, and enough that it was causing me problems by not staying in gear. So I'm really happy with this result, and we'll see what happens. Well, here's the clutch for the Nova, and I kind of explained the plan, what we're going to do. I actually had a clutch set that was left over from another project, and it didn't work right in that project, but it's actually the right application for the Nova. So I got the clutch disc. That's an 11-inch clutch disc. It's the same size as the one that was in it previously. And a new pressure plate, new throw out bearing. I got the alignment tool. So I'm going to use this for a little while and save up until I can buy a little bit better clutch. But I don't want to put a big heavy duty clutch in it now because it has a huge rear end gear, and I'd rather the clutch be the fail point than the transmission or the rear end. So I'm kind of doing this as a safety feature. So let me get underneath and start working on the flywheel. Okay, step before we get the clutch up in place, I'm going to take some 400 grit sandpaper that I have here and a sanding block, and I'm going to sand the surface of the flywheel down. Yeah, you're probably supposed to technically pull the flywheel off, take it to machine shop and get resurfaced, but since this clutch isn't going to be long term, I'm just going to prepare a surface the best I can with what I have here. I will eventually go ahead and order a new flywheel when I order the high performance clutch, but since we're not ready for that, I'm just going to go ahead and sand it and get it prepped right. Alright, got it sanded down, and I'm just going to take some brake clean and clean off all the residue that's left over. Make a nice and clean surface. I'm going to go ahead and put the clutch in place. If you look on the clutch, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there is a etching in the clutch, middle of the clutch, that says flywheel side. So we know that the clutch is supposed to face the flywheel on this side. I've got my clutch alignment tool. It goes into splines, and then we're gonna put it up in place, go into the pilot bearing, and make sure that we're on flywheel side. There we go. Now I'm gonna get the pressure plate. What I'm gonna do is make sure that it's centered up when I tighten up the bolts, and I'm going to tighten up all around. So let me get the pressure plate and do that, and we'll knock that out real quick. So I got all the clutch on. I got all the bolts torqued to 35 pounds. And one way you can tell that you've got the clutch centered pretty well is it comes out really well after it's all tightened out. So this part here is going into the pilot bearing very well and easy. The spline's in easy, goes all the way in, comes out. So if you look there, nice and loose. So that means I can put the bell housing on, which I'll do, and the transmission up in a minute. Okay, so the trans is ready to go in. I just adjusted these shift stops that prevent the shifter from going too far when you get into the gear. What I did is I just made sure that either way, front or back, it allows it to go into gear, but then again doesn't allow it to overextend. Getting ready to pull the shifter off and throw it in the car. So this is one of those do as I say, not as I do situations. Because I'm about to pick this transmission up and put it in. I found out it's a little easier sometimes for me to just go ahead and muscle it in there. But first, let me get the throwout bearing and put it in. Throwout bearing's going in. Alrighty. Let's see if I can do this. There she goes. Alright. Well, out of gear. Alrighty. She's in. I'm going to go ahead and get the transmission cross member on and the drive shaft in, and we'll start it all up. Alright, well let's see if this thing works like it's supposed to. I did fire it up last night and just make sure the clutch wouldn't let it go a little bit forward, a little bit backwards. It was a little too late to test drive it last night, but it's time to do it now. See if adjusting that shift lever and a new clutch makes a difference. So good, we're going backwards a little bit. Not bad. Not bad so far. Car warm up a little bit. Alright, let's see what happens. Feels really good. It's staying in first gear, which is something that I had a problem doing previously. Nice shift, position. Third gear. Alright. Nice. So previously I had to keep it in first gear when I launched and third gear until I got out of the clutch. It really seems like adjusting the shifter fixed that completely, which is awesome. It's going to make drag racing a whole lot easier and actually make it a whole lot more drivable. really, really long throw before. Even though it was just a little over an inch, it makes a huge difference. Third gear should not an issue. Extremely happy. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm just about to put this old girl up and pick up this thing right here. Yeah. So once again, thank you for taking your time out to watch our little videos here. Hopefully you learned something. If not, hopefully you're a little bit entertained. And if you are, give us a subscribe. Maybe give us a thumbs up too on our videos. Also, check us out on the Racer X Garage on Instagram. I'm hoping to have that platform updated a whole lot more. So until next time, y'all be good.